Okay, we're gonna start with finding the delta x or the width. We call the delta x is b minus a divided by 4. Okay, you either turn on the microphone, let me know, or type in the chat. What are a and b for this problem?
Yeah. A is 0 and B is pi. So it'd be pi minus 0 over 4.
Thank
Which
you.
is
So going to be pi
pi
minus
over.
0 over 4 or pi over 4. Okay. Now we got the delta x. From the real number line, we're going to make a list of the point of calculation. If start at A or start at 0, we're going to stop at pi or at pi. The n is pi, but we break it up into n equals subinterval. So what is the next point after 0? So we're going to make it 4 equal subintervals from 0 to pi. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the end point here is pi. So the next point after 0 is what? Yeah, Jeff. Yeah, go ahead.
Pi over 4.
Pi over 4. Thank you. And then the next one is
Pi over 2.
pi over 2. Keep going, Jeff. Thank you for doing this.
Pi over 3.
Is that pi over 3?
I'm sorry, 3/4 pi.
3 3/4 pi. Okay, because we add by pi over 4 to get to the next point. Yep, thank you. So for well, we did the left and the right end points, correct? So let's make a list of the part B and part C. For the left end point, what x value we're gonna use for the left end? Now we kind of set up for part B. The left ends, what we're gonna use? What are x values for the left end points? Think about the first subinterval. What is the left end? What is on your left? Okay, someone say something. Let me see. Okay, Jeff, are you going to say something? Okay, left of the interval is 0. The right of the first is pi over 4. Thank you. So you can do simultaneously. Yes, thank you. So B and C at the same time then. So the first interval, the first left is 0, and the first right is pi over 4. And then keep going. So the second left end gonna be pi over 4. And the next pi over 2, 3 pi over 4. And the set of the right endpoints is going to be pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and pi. Okay, so I'm going to make a list up here as the left 4 points, they are left endpoints, and then the right 4 points going to be the points that we use for calculation. All right, thank you. Now, how about the midpoint? the midpoint. So let's name it as x1 bar and x2 bar, x3 bar, and this is x4 bar. How to find x1 bar? Is the value in between 0 and pi over 4, correct? How do you compute the midpoint between 0 and pi over 4? Or think about the number that could help you to put things together. If you have 0 and a quarter, what is a half or what is in between 0 and a quarter?
1/8.
1/8, yes. And the same thing, same concept. So then the first midpoint gonna be 1/8 of pi. Okay, so gonna be pi over 8. And then the next midpoint gonna be the point in between pi over 4 and pi over 2. And to make it easier to compute for the midpoint, so I'm gonna clean up a little bit, okay? So clean up whatever we have. For the left and the right end, it's not too bad to determine. But for the midpoint, somewhere in between, just right in the middle. That means from one middle to another middle point, it's pi over 4 apart from each other, right? You already told me the first midpoint is pi over 8, and the delta x is pi over 4. So you're gonna add by pi over 4 to get to the next midpoint. And here's the technique. You have the fraction pi over 8, made pi over 4 to be the quantity over 8. So which is 2 times pi over 8. So you're gonna add pi over 8 by 2 pi over 8. Then the next midpoint will be 3 pi over 8. The next one will be 5 pi over 8. 7 pi over 8. Does it make sense? It's just another way to deal with the algebra without getting into the messy part. So the list of the midpoints that we're going to use to calculate would be x equals pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, 5 pi over 8, and 7 pi over 8. Okay, now I'm going to work on one case at a time. We go to another slide. The function y equals cosine of x over 2. Just make a list. The interval AB is the interval 0 pi over 0 pi. And okay, and then n equals 4. And for the first part, the midpoint, if you sketch the graph from 0 to pi, that's what we're working on. This graph is the cosine, the typical cosine graph, starting from the max and go over, go under, and go up to finish one complete cycle at usually the period is 2 pi. But if you recall the property of the cosine graph, the period for this graph is 2 pi divided by b, which is divided by 1/2 or becomes 4 pi. So the period is 4 pi. That means this from 0 to pi is just a quarter of the whole period. So it's supposed to be like this. Okay, and then keep going, keep going. That means it looks almost like the parabola or the curve, but this is the graph of the cosine. From 0 to pi, so we break it up into 4 equal subintervals. And the first midpoint is at pi over 8, and then 3 pi over 8, 5 pi over 8, and 7 pi over 8. Okay, and use the midpoint to calculate the height of the rectangle. So the shaded area would be the area that we get from using the midpoint approximation. To compute it, since we already know the delta x or the width is pi over 4, and the list of the midpoint will be pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, 5 pi over 8, 7 pi over 8, and so forth. Now, the midpoint calculation, the area using the midpoint equals the sum of the function value of each midpoint. So it will be the function at pi over 8 plus the function of 3 pi over 8 plus the function of 5 pi over 8 plus the function of 7 pi over 8, and then multiply by the width, which is pi over 4. And again, the function value is cosine of x over 2. Then just make a list, just make sure you don't miss anything. Okay, and then use a calculator to compute like term by term. So the first one, which is the cosine of x over 2, which is a half of pi over 8, which is pi over 16, plus the cosine of 3 pi over 16. Well, it's definitely not calculating by hand, right? You're gonna need a calculator for this. So the cosine of 5 pi over 16, and plus the cosine of 7 pi over 16, and multiply by pi over 4 after that. So we get the approximation like 2.0129009. So if we keep it 6 decimal places, it's going to be up until 09.